Alrighty, guys, we're gonna get started. Just want to leave a few more minutes for people to get in here, but it's almost 6:15. Thank you for coming. This is Orchestructure's May 30th meetup with Josh Lynn from LlamaSoft. This is LlamaSoft. We'll definitely be back here. This space is amazing. I need more of you to move up front. These awesome people are actually gonna get like pies that are left over. So if you want some, you should move up. But definitely feel free to talk afterwards and integrate and whatnot. And Josh is going to have a ton of questions. He's covering a lot of content today, a lot of utilities you guys use already, stuff that you're looking to use across HashiCorp and obviously for CI/CD pipelines and Kubernetes and all that jazz. So definitely have more pizza. The bathrooms are right over there. They're onesies, so knock first. And let's get started.
Thanks, Mario.
And he's tied over here, so he's going to kind of.
I am, yeah, I totally am. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We are super happy to have you in Llama Land here. I'm sorry to all the people that had to see the dry run yesterday. The good news is that, and see this, the good news is that they didn't choose the G-string portion where I was running down, so that's good. So I'm Josh. Just putting up an obligatory slide about my experience. So I worked a really long time at Thomson Reuters. I then moved to some startups, which is quite a culture shift, and I am here. And this is sort of like LlamaSoft's kind of a medium-sized business. Really quick, totally didn't make Winamp, so that is not the same one that you might think whips Llama's ass. I'm sure everybody knows about that. If you don't, where were you at in the 90s when music was big on those? So here's a loose agenda. I'm going to talk about by the numbers, kind of what our task is, what we have to get deployed, what our current kind of footprint is. It's current-ish. We're obviously growing. What I consider the DevOps pipeline is kind of a combination of these tools. So we're using Hacker, which probably most people are familiar with. Yeah.
I think your screen is sharing the wrong screen.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
People offline at home. I've got to, support the work.
That's
There's
nifty.
3 or 4, maybe. That's cool.
Yeah, I totally know what you're saying, but let's see.
That's a thing to do when you're not here. Yeah. So you can just.
We had 2 hours of planning, guys. Face, Josh.
Is that working?
Kind of hilarious.
Is this better? We'll see.
But if you advance
Better?
Oh, you're gonna, so we will go ahead and continue. We'll send out slides.
Okay, that's fine. That's what I mean. That's what I planned. That's what I plan on doing. For the record, I'd like it to be interactive, so you can totally interrupt me. You can ask questions like a time like this if you want. But there's probably not many questions yet. So, anyways, let's go forward from the agenda, and we will just start talking about things. So, by the numbers, this is illustrating how many things we have to get out right now. So 9 websites, 20+ services, 8 databases, 3 external applications. Like a lot of places, we are in that phase where we're trying to support a monolith and also new things. The new things are microservices, right? We have a goal to eventually break up a lot of those into microservices and then do some cool things with them. Today, this represents a stack where we want to have, we do have currently dev, QA, staging, and prod, so 4 environments, just to give you kind of a picture. This is kind of like a quick little diagram that I sort of started doing when I came in, which is kind of a cool exercise to get familiar with how LlamaSoft was set up. For me, it was only in November. So we're really going to focus our majority of our stuff on the build, image, and deploy portion here, just because of time. So here's just like a brief little rundown of kind of how things flow. So currently we have Jenkins hosted internally. Jenkins is calling Packer. It's doing kind of the heavy lifting, right? It's making a call to a packer configuration file. That packer configuration file has an Amazon EC2 builder. It has a chef provisioner. If you're familiar with all that stuff, great. And then we use Artifactory for our binaries. And then we're eventually spitting out an Amazon machine image. So Packer, I gave kind of a definition here, but really, really we're using something that I've used in a lot of places. I think a lot of people have in DevOps land. And some of the things I really like, of course, it's super lightweight. It's a single file with a whole bunch of configuration options in it, single JSON file. I love that you can do parallelized things. So for instance, you could build an Amazon machine image and spit out a Docker container with that same configuration. That's pretty sweet. So if you're looking to do multi-platform or test your stuff on different things, that's a pretty good tool for that. You're totally blending in, Bob. So you're not Bob.
That's Jeff, but
Bob has less hair.
Yes, good call.
This is that's how they tell Dave and I apart. Dave's not here though. So this is just some quick info about debugging. So if you are lucky enough to always have perfect, successful Packer builds, which congratulations if you are, that's super awesome. Then you won't need this, but I have run into many scenarios, definitely many here, even with consultants we worked with a little bit, Right Brain Networks, where we had to step through and figure out what was broken in a Packer build. So as part of that, there's a little basically debug flag you can pass and step through steps and see where you are in a build. So I'm just going to do like a really quick interactive little demo of just sort of how that works. So I'm going to split out of this for a second. What'd you say? Yeah, I will. I actually find what I need to find here. Bear with me, talk amongst yourselves. Very exciting. Again, you're wondering, did he really say G-string? Yes, he did. It's super gross. I know, I think so too.
I'm going to miss Roseanne. That's a great show.
Aren't we all?
No, not at all.
There we are. That's what I was looking for. So, yeah, I'm not really super impressed with how that looks, but at any rate, it's just a Packer build command, passing a debug, and then a variable I'm passing in, which is just an AMI version, and then I'm hitting the packer.json, and this is in a directory where I have that, right, in my repo.
So, quick question: are you overwriting? Is there an AMI version? Variable in Packer.json that you're overriding with the command line?
Totally is.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, just like anything, I'm just passing something. So this isn't going to be like a super long thing. I just wanted to show like some of the steps it's doing. So it's pre-validating AMI name. Keep in mind this process is set up so all of our Packer files are set up to call Amazon, stand up a temporary instance, get a temporary key pair for that instance, and basically start running things against it. So in our case, provisioners, which is Chef. So in our case, it's a Chef server. So we're downloading those over to those boxes, or rather uploading, I guess is better. Not downloading in this case. And you can see kind of, so just as the reason this is kind of essential is like when you're looking at Jenkins output, it doesn't show you all of the very detailed steps of every single thing. This does. We use this locally more than we do anything. And what I'll tell you is like something I've definitely done is if you're running a different version of Packer on your local machine versus what's on your Jenkins slaves or whatever you're using, you will definitely have different results. You may have terrible results. You may have things that are deprecated. So for instance, we had something where one of the core properties in the Packer file was totally deprecated and changed, and we started getting errors in our builds just to realize that, oh, they had done that in the new version. Someone had accidentally upgraded on our side somewhere. So at any rate, that's all I'm going to show for that, just so that we're not going crazy into a wormhole that everybody's sleeping and stuff. I don't want that. I mean, not yet. So let's go back. I think so, yeah. I mean, it's heavy, right? So Chef is what we choose for configuration management. Of course, there's lots of other options out there. Talked to lots of people lately that use Puppet, which is also Ruby-based. I think Chef is doing things pretty well, in my opinion, in that space. I've used some other things too. I've used some third-party stuff. One of the biggest things I want to highlight with it, because there are a lot of things, and there's really no way I'm going to talk about all those things, is some things that were really cemented in a training I took in it about a year ago, and that is like task-driven development. So they have a built-in test framework called Test Kitchen. And so we use that, and kind of what I didn't go over is we use that to sort of keep things not only consistent, but tested before we actually go out and do something. It helps us fail faster. We found, I know I did when I came in, that we were failing quite a bit longer than I expected. So we would make a change to a cookbook. It would go through the whole packer process and build that AMI. It would die in the middle of the, build AMI and say, oh, you have a cookbook problem, and that's 25, 30 minutes, depending on what you're doing. If it's Windows, it's a whole lot longer. And so I thought that was kind of a cool thing to offer. And so we all started kind of adopting that and doing it. So, so I included some links, which I'm totally going to share the slide deck. If people want to go out and do like a full tutorial, if you've not done this before, it's kind of fun. At least I think it was. They have some different types of tests. There are unit and integration. What I've mostly used integration, I think that's pretty common from who I've talked to in the community. But it depends on your use case and really what you're doing. Yeah, totally. And frankly, I don't know who else really has something to stand up next to it quite at that level. I was telling a candidate recently that we were interviewing that it's a way to do all your stuff ahead of time without breaking or touching anything important and make sure it's good before you go out the door. So I have another little quick thing that I'm going to show. Is knife command?
Knife SSH, right?
Yeah, totally. Knife upload's fun. Knife upload all. I lost my, hold on. That's not it. There it is. Yay. So all this is really going to demonstrate is that it's going to go and create. So what you do really simplistically with Test Kitchen is you have a configuration file. It's called .kitchen YAML, and it's sitting in your cookbooks directory. If all this is foreign, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. You basically get in this directory. You fire off some commands. Now, it is not just that simple. You, of course, have to set up your connection to the Chef server with keys and all that. When you fire this off, you have a variety of options. You can use Vagrant, Docker, all sorts of other things I'm not going to list, and then EC2. And that's what we end up using as a driver. That spins up an EC2 instance for us. We can use an AMI that we use for all of our other stuff, so it's very much like it. So we sort of do it that way. So all I'm running is something called Kitchen Create. There are many, many ways to skin this cat. You can say Kitchen Test, and it will go through the entire cycle. Create, converge. If everything's successful, it'll destroy it as well. I'm just doing the create, so it basically shows it's calling EC2. It's getting an instance spun up. It's getting a temp key. It's saying, hey, cool, your instance is there. All the status checks happen. And then what I would do after it, which I'm not going to demonstrate, is I'd run converge, and that would go run my Chef role against what I'm doing here. So it's super neat. If you haven't checked it out, I would totally encourage you to do so. I'm probably just going to leave that because that's pretty fun, and I'll just leave it out. Dustin will love that because it'll bring the bill up a little more, and he totally digs that. Or, I mean, we can, but no. I mean, we generally do them minimal, but we do try and use the same AMIs because of, behavior of different things, right? So we have like I hate even sharing this, we have like a horrible thing where we had to have, we moved to Server 2016 and we had to put SQL 2014 on the boxes. So we couldn't use the built-in Amazon ones because they all come in SQL 2016. So we had to do a custom build of SQL 2014 with answer files and the whole deal. So it's probably one of the more annoying cookbooks that we've had to wrestle with.
Do you want those like it's the benefit of a guest account or like use a configuration account to say projects
So I'm going straight live to prod with it. Yeah. No, it's because that's the way to go, right? No, it's so we have different VPCs in a single account. So we're just splitting it out. We've got a dev and QA VPC and a staging and prod VPC. So yeah, no, I'm spinning these in the dev. But really, we've done quite a bit to try and make sure all that stuff matches, right? So we don't have differences between the two when we're going up. That's the whole idea of the whole infrastructure as code thing. Yeah. Sure. So the long term is for us to have a management VPC as well. That management VPC will hold tooling, Active Directory, things to reach across into each of them, but keep them from having to have any sort of peering open between them. So obviously, everybody has business priorities and things they have to meet in deadlines, and we have those too. So we had to do some things a little shorter circuit than we wanted to, but we will get it set up the way we want. So we're switching gears a little. This is leaving we built our AMI. It's super cool. It's the golden master. We're pushing forward, and now we're going to deploy it. So for us, it's really, we're still kind of starting the same. We have Jenkins. Now it's calling Terraform. There's some modules. If you're familiar with Terraform at all, they promise a cloud agnostic platform. We can talk about that a little bit more later, but it sort of is. And then, of course, we have variable file for passing in, depending on if we're doing the dev VPC or the prod, right? Because you have different values for subnets and all that. And then, of course, we have some sort of special sauce of things writing into things post deployment. So we can talk about like a little bit of that if people want. The thing you'll see up top for sequencer, that's something we built. And that's basically going to, I'm just going to go forward because I think it's coming up here. We'll just talk about Terraform first. How about that? So I said sort of agnostic. So it definitely works in multiple cloud platforms. I have I love CloudFormation, so that's tough for me to use this, but I also totally like the challenge of learning something new. So this is like, it's kind of, I wouldn't say fun, but interesting to learn. So it's mostly written in Go. It's mostly API calls, and we use it. The catch is that we don't really have ability to see a lot of the things going on. So we developed this thing called Sequencer, which is basically a cookbook with a Ruby script that is doing some GET requests against where we store our Terraform state. So Terraform has a concept of state where it holds state of where it's at or what's been deployed or what the last thing was. I'm sure people might be familiar with that maybe. And what that basically comes out to is we call console, again, another HashiCorp product. I've talked about 3 of them, I think. And basically we're just calling and we pass in a list of dependencies. That list of dependencies is all of the monolith services. We have those in a particular order so that one thing comes up before the next and so on. So it's not nearly as elegant as there are other solutions out there for sure. There are things that we're going to look into that layer on top of Terraform. There's something called TerraGrunt. I don't know if people know what that is, but that also allows you to manage dependencies. For instance, my SQL server's got to come up and do its thing before any of those stuff can come up. Otherwise, everything works. I'm over here. So console, we're not using it for service discovery. In DevOps, we are not. So we use it for key value, sort of like what I said. It's super boring, but also kind of fun because you can't really see them, but they're like really awesome environment names like FU and more proxy and like weird stuff. Because this is us iterating, right? And essentially, we're going to keep doing everyday environments until they get much, much better, right? And over time, it'll just be like, oh, no one has to look at it. It checked in, it sent us the thing. And so I just sort of wanted to show. I thought that was fun. So we talked about all the different pieces of at least these 2 components, which is the build AMI and the deployment. This is just a basic diagram of like how we're setting it up after it's all said and done. So at a high level, publicly exposing a proxy, right? And then underneath that, we're doing application data tiers. The difference, and something I haven't done this way before, is every single thing has a ALB in front of it. Every single thing that we deploy. That allows us to scale. It allows another layer of security. So our guys in security can hit they hit Nginx, but they hit the ALB before it. Then they hit Nginx, then they can't do anything. They don't know where to go. They SSL terminate there, and that's that. So kind of a unique thing. Right brain helps kind of construction this even before I came along. So some of it is secondhand. I wanted to talk just briefly. So we started using, I had some prior experience with Groovy. This is not quite Groovy, but declarative pipelines in Jenkins. I don't know if people have familiarity with those, but we use those for quite a bit of our things. As an example, we are using them to do things that took 4 Jenkins jobs. Now they're just steps in a declarative pipeline. What does that gain? Time, resources, all of that. So if you have a bunch of Jenkins nodes, it doesn't tie up 4 of them, it ties up 1. Do all those processes. That's kind of cool. We found our way into a lot of bottlenecks on that front between the very busy developers and ourselves trying to share Jenkins. So this is like a quick little blurb. And this particular one is pretty simple. This is just like setting the agent name I want. Oh, I want a Linux node. I want to pass these parameters in the Jenkins job. I've got kind of a nifty little case statement. It's not super complex, but it's nice. And I can choose which config I want to pass. In this bigger example, it's for kops, which sort of segues us into Kubernetes. So to recap, we talked about, let's call it the old way of doing all the things in the pipeline, and it's actually pretty mature. And by old, I mean it's at least been a month or so since it was all kind of vetted. And we obviously are getting super antsy because things started working, and that's not what we expect, right? So we decided it was time to move on to something that's totally unrealistic and bleeding edge and might be fixed last night, but maybe not. So we're doing Kubernetes. So we used kops. We toiled with the hosted Kubernetes for a little bit, but you might know that's in beta in AWS and Azure. We did eventually get access to the AWS one, and we'll probably do a POC on it just for kicks. But we had to kind of get this off the ground and going. So I had AWS familiarity, so obviously this is something I could hopefully run with. It's an open source project. It's pretty good. It's command line. It basically spins up your Kubernetes cluster for you, allows you to manage it. And kind of the bigger point is that, so obviously there's some magic where kops will actually make like a whole entire AWS network, doing all the subnets to VPC, the whole deal. But I wanted to do it in our existing. I don't want to deal with resetting up the VPN tunnel, the outside access, all the rights and groups and stuff. And I was like, hey, why can't we just like use our existing? And then it can already talk to the monolith stuff, because keep in mind, it wouldn't be fun unless we had to talk to the monolith stuff from Kubernetes. That's what makes it fun. And by fun, I mean horrifying. So this is like a little brief little, hey, this is cute. This is what Josh did day one. He was like, how do I create a cluster? That's cool. I have these lines. And then, by the way, about half of these were gathered from the poor saps in the Orchestructure channel who replied to me, I'm sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm not sorry, because it did help, and I did learn things. And I tried the Kubernetes chat. I think they blew me off. That's fine.
There's also 30,000 people in the Kubernetes chat. So
there was. And I mean, why were they not there at 7:30 in the morning? Probably because it was 4:30.
Yeah. Well, as long as you pay the Orchestructure numbers that help you, then you're good to go.
There, I have IOUs out. I don't know. So, wow. Okay, that's good to know.
Went and told every single person not to respond.
But damn it, I was in the channel that said kops. You know, I figured that this is a nice subset. Anyways, so this is just apparently I decided to recap the exact same thing. That's cool. mostly for the chips picture. That's really what I was going for. Who doesn't love chips? Eric Estrada is a legend.
We're gonna have a side picture.
So here's a little slide about Kubernetes. Gosh, why do we want to do it? Because it's bleeding edge, and that's a super cool way to get cool engineers to come work here. I totally am working here now. And then obviously container management for us, we decided to do microservices and go into containers. That was already being done about a year ago. We kind of did some business priorities and we pivoted a little. We did the Azure thing first. And then, so there was a whole bunch of work and investment was done there with Kubernetes. And so it was a little bit easier to slide just Kubernetes over to AWS instead of kind of reworking the whole strategy. That's what we did. You know, business priorities change overnight sometimes. So I think I was going to share some helpful hints. I don't know that we have many at this point because we are also struggling mightily, just like everybody else. But I'm going to call them helpful because, hey, I wish someone had told me these things, so that would have been cool. I would say the biggest thing, find a good mechanism, right? We chose the Jenkins pipeline, declarative. I have been looking into Terraform equivalent on the side because I would really rather things be kind of consistent. If the guys are learning Terraform, let's do things in Terraform if it's possible to do so, and it is. I'm kind of a big proponent of like going off and fixing a thing and checking that code, but then maybe just making a job to call that so people don't have to generally learn every single thing about it if they don't want to. They obviously can. I kind of mentioned that as like make it easy for your coworkers, or maybe your new coworkers, your totally new ones, and then you tell them to go read the doc before they can press the button. And then we have this really cool, we've kind of changed the way we do tooling. We don't really want it to just be reliant on like Jenkins slaves and installing all these horrible dependencies because I think everybody's lived that life. If you haven't, you should have because I had to live it. So we decided to go with a lightweight Linux distro called Alpine, and we have a little cool Docker image that we basically throw our kube creds onto. We separate them out from prod and non-prod. And then we also have other things on there like AWS CLI, kops, you name it. The fun part about that is that a lot of those things aren't even in any kind of releasable state. So they're at a app testing branch, which I didn't really know what that was until we started investigating this. But like AWS CLI, kops, and all those things for Alpine are not actually released, and they're not even in alpha. They're like in a weird, I think testing for alpha. Shit, I don't really know. So I was going to do a quick little show of the Docker file that we made for this because it's not really that secret and it's pretty cool. At least I think it is. And that's what matters. So. Like the wedding singer, I'm the man with the microphone. Is that what I just said? And you will listen to every damn word I say. Yeah, I don't actually want that window. I want this window. I will make it. So this is my wild color choice here. Is that sort of better? Okay. So from Alpine, oh, that's cool. Some labels. Hey, look, Kube's latest version. That's not the latest version, of course, but that is what we are using. You'll see the at testing. That's kind of cool. Forget all of that. Totally. Yeah, no, it's so the piece that I love is that you have to forget everything you know about as an Alpine package manager, which is different than Yum or apt-get or any. Of course it is, and it's very different commands and the whole deal. So you can see APK add, kops at testing, AWS CLI at testing, and so on, right? Pretty cool stuff. We put in some creds for AWS because, hey, we're not able to do anything without those. So yeah, nifty. That is pretty much the only sharing for that. So we do it a variety of ways. I think we're eventually going to have, so all the DevOps folks can just mount this up locally. And use it to interact with Kubernetes. That's our plan. We're really scared to do it. We're running on time. I just figured. So The other piece is we have a couple of Jenkins slaves right now just mounting that image and running everything from that. We are going to convert everything to do that because we really don't want to, again, we want to have slaves that are immutable, that really just need Docker, and then they can just fire them off. So that's kind of the idea. And I think this will expand into something much bigger probably than it is right now. So as of right now, Jenkins is running kops to create the cluster, right? So I have a declarative pipeline that's set to take all these parameters in for kops. I then have config files, which I think I've even talked to you about for each environment I'm doing. And then I pass dynamic values into those based on the parameters. And by dynamic, I mean set. So it's super not elegant yet, but it's pretty good and it works.
So Jenkins is creating these Kubernetes clusters.
Yes. Yes, correct. So it does all the kops related things with the config, starts the cluster up. At the end of that, I do a validation step, right? There's a validate cluster, it comes back success. Then I move on and I run an EFS creation. We're going to use EFS for our storage, persistent storage. Then I make the mount targets with that. Then after that, I do one Kubernetes related thing, really, which is deploying our EFS provisioner. That is like our initial volume provisioning that we do. So once you have that and it's tied to the cluster, every one of the services can use a PVC, a persistent volume claim. So like a quota, if you're familiar with disk quotas and stuff like that, to take a chunk out of that and use it for their own storage. So it's pretty nifty. And I did not share all this detail because I thought this would be good, provoking conversation, right? So that's fun. Yeah, there's a lot to learn about Kubernetes. I think I'm going to learn more tonight, maybe, and also tomorrow, and probably every day for a little while. I've taken some of the Pluralsight courses out there. I've scoured the internets. I think I have scoured Orchestructure and found a bunch of slides there from people talking about it, ones I've been to, ones I have not been to. I also think understanding Docker is probably pretty important too. I think that might get missed sometimes. I decided to do DockerCon this year, so I'm going in a couple of weeks. That's pretty cool to me because I haven't really done anything with containers other than this whole run of what we've been doing here. I include some links for like a cool cheat sheet for people that want it or some tutorials. I also included some slides just talking about like how to check basic things because I think this is super helpful. So I'll probably post it on the cube wall. So it's mostly just for me. So hopefully you guys are fine with that. We, of course, right now are still in a stage where we're learning all the things and learning what's actually running and what's actually broken. But we like to do that in prod, so we've already pushed that all the way to prod. So we're rolling along. Everybody holding onto their butts, and it's working really well. So that's pretty much. I included these commands. I'm not going to go through all of them. Just ways to like narrow down, grab a log, tail something. I thought that might be kind of helpful. What's next? What can we possibly do next? Because we've already gone to the bleeding edge. How do we go beyond it, which was the title? Did you see that circle back? That was pretty cool. Yeah. So I mostly mention what's next because these are the things we didn't do when we rolled it out. So that's cool. Because sometimes you don't get the time. So we're looking at monitoring. That's pretty important. So we're doing Prometheus. If we're trying, we have CloudWatch implemented, of course, but that's just infrastructure stuff for the nodes and the master, right? Fine. We want to ship logs because it turns out it's not super cool to give all the devs the Docker container for the prod threads. We can't do that apparently, even though I think that would be totally fine. But then again, we'd have to have role-based access, which we also don't have, which would mean they can delete things and do whatever they want in the cluster. That's no good, probably. No offense, guys. And then, of course, some tooling. We're attempting to do a DevOps tooling cluster that has tooling in Kubernetes because why not, right? We should probably try and tackle that as well while we're doing this. I made a little slide sheet of references here. The Chef Test Kitchen tutorial. So what do I want you to take away from this presentation? If you're not using Chef, well, that sucks for you. But if you are, you need to be using Test Kitchen and you need to use it constantly and you do fight for the use of it and tell people this is how it's supposed to be and it's doing the right way. I think the other thing is, I think it's pretty important that you build your stuff up front. The reason I say building the AMI up front and getting in that state, if you have something fail, you're going to take longer to come back up, right? And not if, when you have something fail, right? So we put things in auto-scale groups, but our idea is that that box goes down, it comes back up, that AMI was already updated, it was up to the state we needed. If we had slight incremental changes, we can still do that with a chef client run, of course, because they actually are registered as nodes and we can talk to them, so that's pretty cool. And then finally, I think the Slack communities don't get enough chatter. Obviously, Orchestructure is pretty fantastic. I think they pretty much set the bar for all the meetups in the area. I'm not just kissing Mario's ass, I promise. But Chef and Kubernetes, so I have used both of them extensively. I will tell you that Chef has dedicated people that are sitting on that channel all day answering questions of all varieties of things. They are fantastic. I've met them at the conference. They've been more than happy to talk all about anything you want to talk about. Some of them seem like they might even be friends of mine now.
You know the kid Cheese, I want to say?
Yep, Cheese Plus.
Yeah, Cheese Plus. He actually spoke at Chef
Yeah,
Conference.
he's my dog for sure.
Yeah, I was surprised.
So yeah, that was my little diatribe on Slack, and that is the presentation. But I would love if people have questions or they want to chat about things. No, and I hope.
You tried, right?
I hope never. We did try. A couple of us tried. We tried because of, well, SQL. And what I ended up doing was, which this is kind of funny, we do have this running in production right now. There is a 2017 SQL instance sitting on Linux running a kind of a low-key metadata database, so not really anything hardcore like our models. And it's not great because, of course, you can't reverse compatibility to the things that are running, the customers are running, and the actual real stuff. So that is a very one-off unicorn, but it is in the Kubernetes cluster, and it is sort of running, and it sort of has persistent storage. By sort of, I mean, I just don't feel very safe with it. I feel like it's fine, and we're doing backups. That's great. We're doing EFS backups. But yeah, that's our Windows, and we failed miserably trying to get Windows stuff up on it. So maybe it's better today because last.
Stuff on the Docker successfully.
Yeah.
When did you guys try?
Did you say when?
It's been a while. So it could have been. Did last night? Did it get all dressed? Is that? I just assumed.
Commit went in.
Yeah, I just assumed. Yeah. I think that.
Oh, really?
So like my take on the Windows thing is like, there's gonna be things we can't control, right? That we're gonna have to leave in Windows. I also think we're gonna have an opportunity to hopefully move people in based on whether they can come to .NET Core, right? So that's what we are trying to do. We are making new things .NET Core. We are trying to get people to break things up and move them there. It's not a crazy thing in most scenarios, but we of course have one-offs, and those are not going to go away, and those are business things, right? So, is that exciting?
I have a bunch of Xbox 360s.
Right. Oh yeah.
Oh.
Questions?
Go bother him. Hey, I'm in the camera now for you.
You are in the
This is
camera.
so jerry-rigged. This
Sweet.
is how we do it. It's how we roll.
Yeah.
So thank you, Josh. That was awesome. Let's give Josh a round of applause. It can even be like every few days. Like I'm so worried. Like I hope it's right. Here's the slides. Please make sure.
I did.
Dry run it yesterday. Right?
Totally did, yeah. These
That's
poor
awesome.
people that are stuck in here, the llamas that had to sit through it. Mostly Dustin, it's fine.
Yeah, it's good. So I just have a really couple quick things. So this summer is really exciting for us. You are all here. We just had the workshop a week and a half ago. Like 65 unique people actually came. That was super awesome. We're gonna do another one of those soon. We have a talk next month from Brian Green from HashiCorp. I don't know what tool yet. I will let you know when I know. We have Nicholas Quick after that on serverless, which I just noticed now is kind of ironic, him talking about serverless at a DevOps server-oriented meetup.
Nice.
And then we have Jared, who's here, who is now running over 10,000 easy photos. 11,000
Just keeps getting
photos.
bigger, man.
Yep.
Wow.
So we're gonna have him back to talk about how much fun that is. I think he's also part of the Sensu community, and he's helping roll that out for those 11,000 posts. So
Can you just talk about scaling? Because that would be great.
yeah.
I grew up a lot of things.
I bet.
Explore, but
How many limit emails have you sent to support?
we automated that. You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's it, starting.
Yeah. They hate him, apparently.
Yeah. And so we're also looking for a few more presenters. We have Matt here from DigitalOcean, from Kalamazoo, who's going to actually, I believe October, he's going to come and talk about something. Maybe Kubernetes.
Whatever
Yeah.
wants.
Yeah, cool. So lots of exciting things coming up. I want to thank our sponsors, LlamaSoft, which is one, Ithaca, which we were at the workshop last month, and the secrets management presentation as well, and Fly.io, and then obviously the Cloud Native. So that's all from me. If anyone has any announcements, you can have the floor here for a minute.
RTS can be posted to most people about it.
Oh, okay. Be sure to post that in the book.
So, obviously, part of LlamaSoft is wanting to get better and a little bit of brand awareness. Yes, we are looking for DevOps talent. Really interesting. Do your job, talk about something. What people starting pretty spectacular. That field. So if you're interested in that kind of challenge, talk about
Awesome. Cool. Go ahead, Matt.
I can go, yeah. So hey, I'm Matt. I work for DigitalOcean. We are hiring. We also do remote. So I've actually worked for DigitalOcean for 4 years now remotely from Kalamazoo. We also have an office in New York and Cambridge, but we are very flexible for remote. We're hiring lots of folks who do Kubernetes type things because we are moving everything in that direction as far as possible and doing less chef, which is great. There's still a lot. There's still a lot of chef. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do everything from compute storage. I do virtual networking. We have lots of opportunities. So come talk to me. I've got business.
It's a good thunderstorm warning, Washington County.
Was that 60 mile an hour?
Yeah, 60 mile an hour.
Let's go outside. Just get taken by the
Ray just gonna get up on the roof, Lieutenant Dan it.
Yeah. Why not?
Lieutenant Dan.
Cool. The recording will be up shortly after, hopefully, and people look out on meetups and your email and need to know the methods for the next meetup information. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Also take pizza, please.